Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Marvel. I am Thanos 021. Chapter 021. In front of GUTN and Tony Stark, a lot of data analysis and calculation results appeared. Gradually, Stark suddenly realized, I understand that this is a concept similar to a parallel universe, and if I have changed it in the past, its direction will extend from the point of change to another universe and it has nothing to do with my previous universe. Quote. If you say so, going back to the past to kill Thanos, it is useless, and it will not change the present at all. If you want to carry out this space-time hijacking plan, you have to go back to a certain point in time precisely, and I need to make a device like this. Friday. The required materials and consumption time of the installation are being calculated. GUTN was also very excited to watch from the sidelines. The time-space hijacking plan was finally about to begin. In Avengers 4, their plan led the past Thanos to the current point in time. I don't know if there will be such a mistake this time. Stark began to be busy, while GUTN watched from the sidelines, constantly eating cheeseburgers, plus high-end red wine, which made Stark hungry for a while. Stark was also quickly lured by the food and wine, and while eating, he said to GUTN, "GUTN, can I ask you something?" Quote. Oh, Iron Man actually has something to ask GUTN to help. GUTN was slightly surprised. This favor GUTN was willing to help. He originally came to get closer to Iron Man, because he felt that Iron Man getting the Infinity Gauntlet would be a fateful thing. That scene had been seen by Doctor Strange. In other words, it may have existed in the timeline of the universe. Even if GUTN crosses into Thanos' body from another dimension, he can kill Iron Man at any time, and if this fatalism exists, it may not be able to prevent this from happening. Therefore, he can only stop what Iron Man will do after he gets the gloves. Of course, whether there is fatalism or not, GUTN is only guessing. Make a plan to be prepared. He naturally will not let Iron Man have the opportunity to touch the Infinity Gauntlet. GUTN first asked the system, how many points can I get Iron Man's like? Quote. The system said, Iron Man Tony Stark belongs to the S-class character and can get 10,000 points. Quote. After hearing this, GUTN quickly replied to Stark, say, what's the matter, I will definitely help you finish it. Quote. Stark finished eating the burger, wiped his mouth, and then glanced at the photo of him and Spider-Man, Peter Parker on the table with a little sadness, and then said with emotion, Peter Parker, he is Spider-Man, you know. I have always treated him like my own son. I have always wanted to protect him from getting hurt. Who would have thought that he would leave Earth with me? Quote. When Thanos snapped his fingers on Earth, Peter Parker and I didn't know it, and the low IQ people of the Guardians of the Galaxy didn't know, and I saw the people around me, one by one, turned into ashes and blown away by the wind. If Peter disappeared in an instant like this, my heart might not be so uncomfortable, but he is not an ordinary person. He has spider senses and can predict danger. That is, before his body turns gray, he already knows that he is going to die. At that time, he grabbed my hand in advance and told me that he didn't want to die, and I grabbed his hand hard, but I couldn't do anything. I watched him disappear in front of me. Speaking of this, the old Stark had some tears in the corners of his eyes. As a Marvel fan, how could GUTN not know Stark's feelings for Peter Parker? Stark relieved for a moment, then said, fortunately, now we can get him back. He will soon reappear in front of us, and continue to chatter alive, but his aunt does not know that she is still immersed in the pain of losing Peter. Quote. GUTN, you have the ability to transform. I want you to become Peter Parker. Go visit his aunt, and let her know that Peter Parker is not dead. Tony Stark also heard about Peter Parker's aunt. Because of the loss of Spider-Man in recent years, his mood has become depressed. Since Spider-Man will return soon, then he wants to make Spider-Man's aunt happy as soon as possible, otherwise it will be tragic if he can't come back. Peter Parker's aunt, Aunt May. Quote. GUTN suddenly thought that Spider-Man's aunt was a beautiful woman with a stunning figure. Although I am a little older, I am super well maintained, and I can't see that I am that old, and the small shop owners who live around me think about it every day. Remembering Aunt May's hot figure, GUTN couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Went to find Aunt May, right? Thanos would love to. GUTN patted his chest and assured, don't worry, Tony, leave this matter to me. I promise to make Peter's aunt happy to fly. Quote. Stark patted GUTN's shoulder. Then thank you so much. I will also build this time machine as soon as possible during this time, and I will notify you and Steve immediately as soon as there is any progress. Quote. Okay, since GUTN can't help Stark with anything, let's go and comfort the Aunt May, who still has the charm. Marvel. I am Thanos 022. Marvel. I am Thanos. Chapter 022. Tony Stark told her that Aunt May no longer lived in Queens, NY, but moved to Miami, Florida. Miami is a great place, especially these seasons, and it's definitely a pleasure to go swimming and surfing in shorts on South Beach and seeing those enchanting bikini beauties. In a previous life, GUTN had come to Miami, and not long before he was reborn, to see Dwayne Wade's last show in the Miami Heat. Speaking of the NBA, the Marvel world also has it, but because Thanos snapped his fingers and lost half of his NBA players, there are now only a dozen teams, and the ratings are not as high as they used to be. When he came to Miami, it was already 7 o'clock in the evening. GUTN took Aunt May's address and found the residence where Aunt May was, and at this time, he had changed into the appearance of Spider-Man, Peter Parker. Ding dong. GUTN rang the doorbell outside. Soon, a sexy mature woman wearing an orange camisole and a short black skirt with long flowing hair appeared in front of GUTN. It was Peter Parker's aunt, Aunt May. Oh my god, it's beautiful. In fact, before coming, GUTN was still a little worried. Aunt May is not young, and it has been 5 years, and these 5 years may become very melancholy every day because of the loss of Peter Parker. Is the current Aunt May no longer as good looking as before? However, GUTN never expected that the current Aunt May not only still has the charm, but also looks younger than 5 years ago. It's amazing. She looks like a woman in her 30s. Although the face is also very attractive, but GUTN still can't help but put his eyes on the orange peak. The figure is really a lifetime thing. Even if he is old, there should be material, there is still material, it is really itchy to watch. And after Aunt May saw GUTN's pretended Peter Parker, she was stunned on the spot, and then shouted and hugged GUTN. Because Aunt May is tall, but Peter Parker is not tall, plus the position where Aunt May is standing now, there is one more step than GUTN, resulting in this hug, directly facing GUTN's face against the orange peak. This, GUTN was held tightly in Aunt May's arms, and she couldn't breathe. This can't be blamed on Aunt May, she really misses Peter Parker so much. Aunt May hugged GUTN while saying in a voice with a crying voice, "Stinky boy, where have you been in the past 5 years? I thought you were dead." Quote. GUTN was also a little helpless. It was really embarrassing to be held like this, but after thinking about it, it was also quite enjoyable. After all, May was not his aunt, and he had nothing to do with May. Was held by Aunt May for a while. Aunt May took GUTN's hand into the house. GUTN was quite afraid to see a strange man in her home. After all, Aunt May has an enchanting figure. No matter where she goes, there are many men to pursue, but found that Aunt May is still alone. Speaking of Aunt May's beauty, the director of the movie, Spider-Man: Homecoming, actually used 2 terriers to let the audience know how beautiful and hot Aunt May is, which is very rare. You know, Marvel's movies, every line, every scene, is not casually filmed and said casually, like a sentence, on your left, in Team America, and finally can be placed in AVENGS 4 inches to make people shine. And in the movie, Spider-Man, it was used twice to pay tribute to Aunt May's appearance. Once when eating salad with Peter Parker, the young waiter specially showed favor to Aunt May, and once was a store owner, in front of Peter Parker, saying that his aunt was really a stunner. GUTN's real person who saw Aunt May finally understood, and it was not too much to praise her for being beautiful 1,000 times. Aunt May grabbed GUTN's hand, and she didn't let go of it, and kept asking GUTN where he had been in the past 5 years, why he didn't contact her, and so on. GUTN had already thought of the answer before he came, and calmly coped with it. Unconsciously, the two had chatted until 1 o'clock in the morning, and GUTN was a little sleepy, but Aunt May still had endless words and wanted to talk to GUTN. "Peter, are you sleepy? Let's talk with Aunt May for a while. I'm afraid that when I wake up, you will disappear again." Aunt May was like a little girl, begging GUTN. GUTN took Aunt May's hand, and could already unscrupulously put his hand on her thigh, and said, "Aunt May, otherwise, you will sleep with your arms around me tonight, so that you will not be afraid that I will disappear." Quote. "That's it. Go Go to my room. Aunt May doesn't mind sleeping with Peter Parker. After all, Peter Parker was raised by her, and she slept together when she was a child. Coming to Aunt May's bedroom, Gutn was lying on Aunt May's body in the most coveted place for men, and his mood was extremely satisfied. I'm sorry, Peter Parker, your aunt is too punctual. It's not that I want to take advantage, it's really impossible for any man to resist it. Just as Gutn was holding Aunt May and preparing to fall asleep, the system suddenly made a sound. Target person May detected. Identity: Shield Agent. Character level: Grade B. If the host gets May's like, he will get 2,000 points. Gutn was stunned suddenly. What was the situation? Aunt May turned out to be a Shield Agent. Marvel. I am Thanos 023. Marvel. I am Thanos. Chapter 023. There is a person named May among the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he is also of Chinese descent, but that one named Melinda May is not the same person as Aunt May at all, and his appearance is much worse. Gutn is very sure that Aunt May turned out to be an ordinary woman. It is estimated that becoming a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent is a matter of the past 5 years. No wonder her complexion will be so good, looking younger than 5 years ago. In these 5 years, it turns out that she has not been in depression, maybe turned grief and anger into motivation. Gutn wanted to know what happened to Aunt May in the past 5 years, how she had changed from an ordinary woman to an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he also wanted to know who was leading S.H.I.E.L.D. now, whether it was Nick Fury or Coulson, or Daisy John. So, Gutn immediately asked Aunt May, Aunt May, what have you been doing in the past 5 years? Quote. Aunt May tilted her body to look at Gutn, revealing the small hemisphere, and it didn't matter, and said with a smile, what can I do? Every day is just basking in the sun and getting fit. Quote. Gutn glanced at the places he shouldn't be looking from time to time, and said, Aunt May is not well behaved, you have something to hide from me, quickly say, what are you doing now? Don't say that I want to tickle you. Quote. Don't tickle me, you know I'm most afraid of itching. Aunt May quickly contracted her body, and seemed to be really afraid of itching. Gutn laughed badly, and then pressed Aunt May under him. Hee, if you are afraid, quickly explain it truthfully. Quote. Nope. Although Aunt May was afraid, her mouth was quite hard. Gutn was also unceremonious. Anyway, it was not his aunt, so he immediately started scratching her. Ah, don't scratch. Aunt May kept shaking her body exaggeratedly, and then laughed loudly, and Gutn found the charming woman, and smiled even more. Speak quickly, speak quickly. Gutn also kept putting pressure on Aunt May. But Aunt May completely regarded this as a frolic, and did not take it seriously at all, although she laughed loudly and itched very much, but she just refused to say it. Gutn is a little impatient now, dare not answer my Thanos question. It seems that a trick must be made. Gutn smiled wickedly. Aunt May, if you don't say it again, I won't tickle you, I may do something more excessive. Quote. Aunt May lay on the bed, looked up at Gutn, snorted coldly, hooked Gutn's nose with her hand, and said with a smile, you smelly brat, what can you do to me? Quote. Gutn is no longer polite. Lao Tzu has been reborn Thanos. If he can't do whatever he wants, it will be too humiliating. Since at this moment, Aunt May evoked Gutn's most primitive impulse, then Gutn also ignored the role he played, directly leaned down and kissed Aunt May. Ah, Aunt May was slightly startled. She never expected that Gutn would kiss her. In Aunt May's memory, she and Peter Parker have not kissed, but it was a kiss as an elder, and the children of the M family, whether they are fathers or mothers, will kiss their children and express their love. Spider-Man in Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse, went to school. His father sent him to the school gate, and his father also asked Spider-Man to say such a fleshy thing as, I love you, to his father in front of the whole school. However, at this moment, Aunt May could no longer regard Gutn's kiss as a kiss between elders and children. Nima, this is completely towards the circle fork. Aunt May was a little flustered, but for a moment she didn't know how to refuse, so she had to accept. 10 minutes later, bang, the window of Aunt May's living room suddenly shattered, and there was a violent noise, which disturbed Gutn and Aunt May, and at this time, the two stopped moving. Damn, which little king bastard smashed the window? Gutn scolded in his heart, daring to disturb Lao Tzu's good deeds. However, at this time, Gutn had already gained Aunt May's favor and got those 2,000 points. And May's 2,000 points, plus Morgan Stark's 1,000 points. GUTN now has another 3,000 points, which can be exchanged for a Zuling Qingdan. I'll take a look, don't you come out. And May wiped her mouth with a tissue, then immediately put on her shoes and walked out. GUTN was not in a hurry to exchange Ling Qingdan. After all, now he already has half of Thanos' strength. Even if it is Hulk, half of the strength is enough to deal with him. He saw that Aunt May looked very nervous, and guessed that it was not as simple as a child smashing the window, so he immediately got out of bed and prepared to follow. Aunt May took a pistol, and then walked out very agent-like, saw the people outside, and immediately raised the gun to shoot. Bang bang. Aunt May fired 3 shots in a row, but saw the people outside, did not dodge, but created a powerful shock wave with both hands, and the bullet hit the shock wave and immediately fell to the ground. May, tell me Coulson their whereabouts. The person outside said. It was a woman's voice. GUTN heard the woman's voice in the house, and his heart was shocked. Coulson. Does it mean Phil Coulson? He's really not dead yet. Quote. Just when GUTN had just put on his clothes and shoes and was about to run out to support May, suddenly, the whole room shook violently. Is it an earthquake? GUTN was a little surprised. If it wasn't caused by an earthquake, there would only be one possibility. Marvel. I am Thanos 024. Marvel. I am Thanos. Chapter 024. What can cause the house to shake? In addition to earthquakes, there are also superpowers, and GUTN knows a person who can do this, Daisy John, also called Sky. In the comics, she is the only agent with a level 10 security clearance besides Nick Fury and Black Widow, and in the Marvel world where GUTN is now, she is also Phil Coulson's right hand, and after joining S.H.I.E.L.D., she became an Inhuman and awakened the superpower of creating shockwaves. Therefore, people gave her the nickname, Shockwave Girl. Since being reborn into this world, GUTN found that many people know the Shockwave Woman, and her reputation is no worse than that of the Iron Man. Like Kathy said, she often saw news of the Shockwave Woman on TV 5 years ago. And before the appearance of Lincoln, GUTN thought about whether Daisy John Shuan did not have the possibility of death. Outside the house, the mixed-race beauty Daisy John directly shook the door of Aunt May's house, and then threatened, "Tell me Coulson's whereabouts, otherwise, I will kill you." Quote. I won't say anything if you kill me. Aunt May is very tenacious. GUTN didn't know why Daisy John forced Aunt May about Coulson, but he knew that now, it was time for him to appear. Daisy John aimed her hands at Aunt May's body and said, "Okay, then don't blame me." Quote. Stop. GUTN suddenly walked out of the room, then walked to Aunt May's side, and said to Daisy John outside the house, "Daisy John, you came to demolish the house at night, are you sick? Do you know what time it is? Neighbors don't have to sleep." Quote. GUTN has restored Thanos 50% of his power, and there is still no problem in dealing with the Shockwave Girl, so, with strong strength support, GUTN also played a meme in Xing Yi's Kung Fu, and teased Daisy. Who knows, after Daisy John saw Peter Parker's appearance of GUTN, she really lowered her hands and said with a surprised face, "Spider-Man." Quote. What? Daisy John actually knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Aunt May also suddenly froze and looked at GUTN. "You are the Spider-Man who often does good things in Queens." Quote. GUTN quickly denied it. "I'm not." Quote. Lao Su is not Spider-Man, Lao Su is not Peter Parker, is Thanos good? Daisy John snorted coldly. "You don't have to deny it, don't forget, I was a senior agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. before, and I was temporarily the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., the true identity of any superhero. I know, not only I know, Coulson also knows. Oh, by the way, May, because you are not level enough, so I don't know." Quote. Seeing Daisy John's smug look, Aunt May said sarcastically, "You traitor, you are kind enough to say that you are from S.H.I.E.L.D. Quote. GUTN heard it at this time. Daisy John Shuan betrayed S.H.I.E.L.D. and became an opponent of S.H.I.E.L.D., no wonder she came to ask Aunt May. But why did Daisy John become a bad person when he was good? Daisy John Shuan raised her hands again, made a combat posture, and said to GUTN, "Come on, spit out your spider silk, and see if your spider web is powerful or my shock wave is powerful." Quote. Seeing this, Aunt May patted GUTN's shoulder encouragingly, "I believe you, come on. Shoot her with a cobweb." Quote. GUTN looked embarrassed. "Why did I use spider webs? This isn't my regular attack method of Thanos, okay. However, at this time, if you show your identity and become the same, will it be too intimidating? GUTN asked the system, is there an ability that allows me to have Spider-Man? Quote. The system said, yes, host, but you need to consume 9,000 points, and your points are only 3,000 and cannot be redeemed. Quote. GUTN shook his head, even if he had 9,000 points, he would not exchange them, because this skill was of little use to Thanos. As long as he restored Thanos' strength to 100%, it would be enough to kill other heroes in seconds. The skills are fine, not much. GUTN. You also saw that the two big beauties made me spit cobwebs, can you help me vomit once? Quote. The system said. This system can give the host a spider web out of sympathy, but it cannot give the host Spider-Man the ability. Quote. Okay. Anyway, let's get through this embarrassing moment. GUTN didn't talk nonsense, and after the spider web given by the system reached GUTN's hands, he directly threw it at Daisy John. Daisy John immediately sent a shock wave with both hands to resist, but the seemingly soft spider web, under the power of Thanos in the ancient sky, abruptly broke through Daisy John's defenses and directly threw it on Daisy John's face. Pia. The spider web was tightly attached to the left side of Daisy John's face, and Daisy John Shuin touched it with her hand and said with a look of disgust, why are you smelly and sticky with this spider web? And I see you like you were thrown out, you are not Spider-Man at all. Who are you? Quote. And May also looked at GUTN in surprise. Marvel. I am Thanos 025. Marvel. I am Thanos. Chapter 025. Everyone knows that Spider-Man can spit spider silk in his hands and fly around lightly, but GUTN can't do this, and now, he can only show his true face. With half of Thanos' strength, GUTN did not dare to show up, but was embarrassed to face Aunt May. After all, he had just lied to people for 10 minutes of kissing. Aunt May's heart also raced, looked at GUTN, and said, you are not Peter Parker, he will not do something like that to me. Looking at Aunt May's deceived grievance, GUTN thought to himself, Nima, you obviously enjoyed the 10 minutes just now, okay. And the first 3 minutes are my initiative, and the rest are all you taking the initiative, Aunt May. Alas, a woman who has been lonely for too long cannot be blamed on her. GUTN changed back to his previous appearance, and then said to Aunt May, Aunt May, I was sent by Tony Stark, my name is GUTN, he asked me to seduce you, oh no, he asked me to pretend to be Peter and make you happy. Quote. Aunt May's heart gushed with dirty words, Tony Stark, who killed 1,000 cuts, actually did such a lack of virtue to make the old lady happy. The old lady was almost coaxed to bed by the people you sent. Seeing that GUTN could actually deform, Daisy John Shuin was slightly surprised, but did not stay. She has been a SHIELD agent for so many years, she has seen any superpower. GUTN's ability to transform is not unusual, and she has encountered it before. Daisy John said, you're an Inhuman too, right? We are the same kind, I don't want to go against you, since you have nothing to do with May, don't meddle in the affairs between us. Quote. Aunt May's body trembled a little nervously, while GUTN stood in front of her domineeringly, just disturb me in Aunt May's beautiful affairs at you, and I won't spare you. Quote. Daisy John snorted coldly. Young age, the taste is quite unique, well, then I will teach you a lesson, for the sake of you being a person, I will start lightly. Quote. Daisy John Shuin heard the accent when GUTN said his name. Daisy John Shuin is actually a gorgeous mixed blood, her mother is a person, and she is also the leader of the Inhumans, with the ability to live forever, once dismembered by Hydra, or sewn up by Daisy's father, and finally killed by her daughter and husband. GUTN showed a smile on his face. No need to pretend that Spider-Man throws any spider webs, he can teach the Shockwave girl a lesson freely. Before Daisy John Shuin launched an offensive, GUTN grabbed the door that was smashed by Daisy with one hand and smashed it at Daisy John Shuin. Bang! Half of Thanos' strength should not be underestimated, and Daisy John was directly smashed out, spitting blood from her mouth. Seeing that GUTN's strength was so strong, Aunt May couldn't help but admire it, and walked over to GUTN and said, that door is new, it can still be used, handsome man, can you smash it with something else? Quote. GUTN. GUTN saw a white Volkswagen Polo car parked in the yard, walked over, raised the car with both hands, and smashed it directly towards Daisy John. Ah! Daisy John was hit hard. Aunt May saw that her car was missing 2 tires in an instant, and secretly said in her heart, I already knew that I let him smash the door. Quote. Daisy John Shuin was hit by Gutn and could not fight back, but she was very unconvinced, lying on the ground, and said, You monster, will you lose something? When did our Inhumans come out with someone as bad as you? What about your superpowers? What about your weapons? Quote. Speaking of this, Gutn found that he seemed to be really short of a weapon, but he didn't use a weapon, his bare hands were so strong, and it didn't seem to make much difference whether he used a weapon or not. Just when Gutn was about to ask Daisy John what happened, he suddenly heard a roaring motorcycle sound not far away, and soon, he saw a burning motorcycle quickly coming towards this side. I saw a burning skull, wearing a black leather suit, riding a black Harley motorcycle with iron chains tied to it, and rushed to Gutian. It's the Ghost Knight. As soon as Gutn saw this costume, he immediately recognized this guy. And according to Gutn's guess, this evil spirit knight is the 4th generation, called Robbie Reyes, not Johnny Blazer in the Soul Chariot, because Robbie Reyes is a character who exists in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Johnny does not belong to the MCU movie universe. According to Gutn's understanding, Robbie Reyes also made a deal with the demon Mephisto to become an evil spirit knight, and his strength is very strong. Robbie Reyes got down from the motorcycle and waved the flaming chain to attack Gutn, and Gutn directly grabbed Robbie's fire chain with his hand, which surprised Robbie Reyes. Ordinary people can't withstand such a big force. However, he never expected that Daisy John Shuin sneaked up on Gutn at this time, sending an attack wave at Gutn, repelling Gutn, and Gutn also flew out a few meters. Robbie Reyes wrapped the chain of fire around his shoulder as if ostentatiously, and interrogated Daisy John, who is this guy? How come you don't even have a weapon? Quote. Daisy John shrugged. I don't know where a poor ghost came from, only brute strength, let's not entangle with this kind of person. May, this low-level agent doesn't even know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, should not know Coulson's whereabouts, let's go. Quote. Saying that, Daisy John Shuin swung a shock wave towards the ground with both hands, and flew directly into the air and left, with a posture like Captain Marvel. Please like and subscribe.